Welcome to the video, guys, and welcome to the very first episode of this monthly favourite series. And in this series I'll be sharing the things that I've been watching, reading and listening to this past month in the world of music. Well, mostly. Side note, I just want to say thank you so much to all of you that have subscribed to date. Massively appreciate it. We're almost at 500 subs, so if you're watching this and you haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing so. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about in this August wrap up. Let's get into it. So I wanted to start off by talking about something that I feel isn't really getting the coverage that it deserves at the moment in the news. Although when you consider everything else that's going on in the world at the moment, you can kind of understand why. Essentially, I'm talking about the long-lasting effects that the pandemic and Brexit have both had on the UK music industry, particularly for small and independent artists. Now, Elton John has been very vocal about this in the media. He's come out recently stating that he believes that we'll lose an entire generation of talent if the government doesn't intervene. And when you think about the music scene today and how we really have very few, if any, small bands to really shout about and get behind and get excited about, this is very worrying news indeed. Basically, as a result of the new Brexit trade deal, up-and-coming artists will no longer be able to tour Europe freely due to the introduction of permits and visas that must first be acquired before artists can travel. Now, when you couple this up with the fact that lots of live music venues in the UK have been forced to close their doors in recent years due to the pandemic, it's not hard to see why this could be a big problem for touring artists. And for me, it's hard to see how any relatively unknown artist can really tour without it being a logistical nightmare and costing a fortune. And as Elton states in his article, these touring circuits really are a crucial part of a musician's career development in terms of cutting their teeth and honing their craft. I'll be keeping a close eye on what the government is actually doing about this. And for now, I think it's just really important to raise awareness about this subject. In other news, a really big talking point for me as well was Arctic Monkeys returning to the stage and also announcing their 7th studio album, The Car, as well as giving us a taste of their new album with a live debut of the new song, I Ain't Quite Where I Think I Am. And if you do want full coverage on this, make sure you subscribe and check out my latest video linked above. So in the world of rock music, we had the new Muse album, Will of the People. Now, this album has been described by many critics really as a best of Muse album. Essentially what I think they're trying to say is that every song pays homage to a specific part in Muse's pretty eclectic discography. And as a result, the album on first listen is certainly an interesting one. Obviously very varied in terms of sound and style, and it's certainly not boring. The song You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween is so entertaining, but it's such a corny listen at the same time. It's so derivative, but purposely so, I think. To me, it sounds like a mashup between Things That Go Bump in the Night by All Stars. And This Is Halloween from Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm also really enjoying the dystopian theme that flows through this entire album. And some of the standout songs that I'm really enjoying at the moment, like Won't Stand Down or Kill or Be Killed, are great examples of pushing this concept. And then you have the last song on the album. Jesus Christ. I feel like the guys from Muse have always had fun with their music and never really taken themselves too seriously, but this is just another level of silly. I think the guys are just messing about and having fun at this point. I don't think they're on this mission to make any groundbreaking music, to be honest, but a really entertaining and a fun listen nonetheless. We also had Kasabian's new album, The Alchemist's Euphoria, this month, and I've got to say, in Tom's absence, I am really liking a couple of these songs on this new album. I've got the tunes Alligator and Scripture just on repeat at the moment, and I've got to say, Scripture for me is just absolutely class. It kind of sounds like a Kanye West vintage Kasabian mashup, but just executed really, really well. The rest of the album I have mixed feelings about, to be honest, but the singles are great. And lastly, we had new singles drops from Reverend and the Makers and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The songs Tip of My Tongue and Heatwave in the Cold North are both just fantastic tunes, and again, they've been on my playlist for this month. Really enjoyable listen. If you haven't heard them yet, I recommend giving them a whirl. Okay, so it's time for the Artist of the Month feature, and I'm very, very fond of this one. Her name is Brooke Combe. She's an Edinburgh-born singer-songwriter. Now, when I hear Brooke's music, I hear a bit of Stevie Wonder, I hear a bit of Marvin Gaye, and I hear a bit of The Temptations. The list kind of goes on. And I first stumbled upon her when she was supporting Miles Kane at the Roundhouse live in London a couple of months back. Now, usually when you see a support act, people are kind of just talking amongst themselves, sipping a bit of beer, not really paying attention. But honestly, Brooke had the entire audience mesmerised. She had my full attention for the whole set, and she just sounded incredible. What a voice and what songwriting ability. I think she's going to blow up. Her voice is really soulful, and I feel like her songs sound like modern day Motown records. And I was actually trying to, in preparation for this video, find out more about her online, about where she's from and her story and all that, but I couldn't really find anything. She doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. That's how you know an artist is still yet to break. Turns out Miles is also a big fan of hers too, and so are the band Blossoms. Charlie, the bassist from Blossoms, is actually her touring and recording bassist at the moment. And there are videos on her social media of Charlie in the studio with her, writing and recording with her. Not sure if he wrote or played the bass line to her song Impress You, but my god, that bass is groovy. And James Skelly from The Coral, who's produced the past few Blossoms records, is also on production duties on Brooke's music. Now, it's interesting to me that Brooke is working with several guys from the indie rock camp for her music, considering it sounds more soulful and it's got more of a Motown vibe for me, but I'm really liking what I'm hearing from this collaboration so far. And if you haven't heard her music, I recommend listening to the song Impress You, my favourite tune of hers at the moment. Are You With Me is another great one, and so is Yes Sir, I Can Boogie, which is an acoustic stripped down version which, oddly enough, will make you boogie. Very excited for what's to come with Brooke's music, go check her out. So, if you're interested in making music, this podcast is for you. It's called Tape Notes, and I don't think it's been running for that long at all, really. I think they're about 100 episodes in. But they've already had some huge guests on, like Royal Blood, The 1975, and Everything Everything. It's hosted by John Kennedy, and essentially in every episode, the artist takes us through their song creation process. And the episode I listened to this month featured the band Royal Blood. And in this episode, Mike and Ben kind of just laid everything on the table in terms of how they get their sounds. Mike explains, for example, how he uses a cheap £30 speaker to record some of his bass sounds, and how when he recorded his vocals for the latest album, he just sat at his mixing desk with an SM7B microphone. He didn't bother using a vocal booth or anything like that. And for me personally, I just think that hearing this sort of stuff is so inspiring and encouraging for home studio musicians. Just knowing that a lot of these modern day big commercial records from the likes of Royal Blood and Billie Eilish are actually just made in a fairly DIY sort of way, and they still sound incredible. You even get to hear older demo versions of particular songs, so you can see how the songs evolved over time and how it's ended up becoming the final product. One of the things in this episode that was actually news to me was that I didn't realise that Mike actually programs drums sometimes and then gives it to Ben, and Ben will either replace the drums or add to them. There's even a bit where Mike talks about programming the drums for the intro to Limbo, thinking that it would be impossible for Ben to play, and how Ben enjoys the challenge of taking Mike's programmed drums and figuring out a way to play them on a live drum set, even if seemingly impossible. Such a fascinating listen to kind of go behind the curtain on some of these songs. If you are interested in the creative process behind how these songs are made, I definitely would give this a listen. An absolutely fascinating, shocking, and at times gut-wrenching watch. I am of course talking about Trainwreck Woodstock 1999, the new documentary series that's just dropped on Netflix. For those of you that don't know, the original Woodstock Festival of 1969 was a triumphant music festival success in the US that saw tens of thousands of people coming together in the name of peace and love and to celebrate live music. After reviving the festival once in 1994, Mike Lang, co-founder of the event, revived the festival once again in 1999. However, this time, things took a bit of a turn for the worst. And this 3-part Netflix series follows the 3 days of the festival as we see things go from bad to worse to catastrophic. The festival made headlines for its unsanitary conditions, which included undrinkable drinking water, drinking water that actually contained feces, extortionate prices, and a lack of basic amenities, which ultimately led to festival goers turning violent and rioting, and many embodying this Fight Club sort of mentality. I honestly couldn't believe my eyes watching this series at some points. I felt like I was literally watching people behave like animals, and some of them even looked possessed at points. It was really strange to watch. It's hard to believe that this actually happened in the 90s, like it would never happen in 2022, surely. Just a fascinating watch from start to finish. And it just goes to show what can happen when you put profit over people. I'm looking at you, Rishi. Also kind of shocking was the fact that Red Hot Chili Peppers were headlining that festival. That band has straight up been headlining festivals for about 20 years. I just find it mental that they've been around for this many years and they're still at the top of their game playing stadiums. I won't say any more, just go watch it, it's fantastic. Okay, so that pretty much sums up my August favourites. Hope you've enjoyed the watch, and if you hadn't heard of any of the stuff that I covered in this video, hopefully you've now got some decent recommendations to go and enjoy. And if there was anything that caught your attention this month that I didn't cover in this video, please leave a comment down below and share it with us. And whilst you're at it, let me know if you're excited for this series. And lastly, if you enjoyed the video, do give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And I'll speak to you all very soon.